Welcome to this Tuesday edition of OutKick Bets. I am your host, Kayla Canarum. Joining me over there in Alabama is my co-host, Mr. Arky Shea. Arky, how's our Tuesday so far?
Busy as we'll get to in a minute. Very busy. How are you doing?
Doing great. You know, I'm a little few hours behind you, so still waking up a bit, but we're ready to get this thing started.
Yeah, I'm ready for lunch already. Let's get this thing going.
All right, we've got breaking news off the top to get to. Duke's five-star recruit and the best player in the country, Paolo Banchero, and Coach K's grandson, Michael Severino, were obviously involved in a little incident over the weekend. Banchero gave his car to let Severino drive, who had been drinking. So he was charged with aiding and abetting a DWI. Severino was pulled over early on Sunday morning after he failed to stop at a stop sign. He took a breathalyzer. His blood alcohol level was 0.08, which is the legal limit in North Carolina. He was pulled over for failure, again, to yield at a stop sign and driving after consuming. So his license will be revoked for 30 days. This is obviously not great news for Duke. So, Arky, what does this mean for betting? Duke has Gardner-Webb tonight, so they lucked out there. However, they do have Gonzaga a week from Friday. Not anything crazy in between. We're hearing a possible 2 to 3 game suspension, but there'll be a press conference later that will give more details on that. If that's the case, they should be back for the Zaga game. How do you see this affecting tonight's lines and future games? Obviously, without the number one player in the country, it's going to change some things for Duke for sure.
Yeah, and somebody who is thought to be a top 5 pick going into the NBA draft in Paolo Banchero, not Coach K's grandson, unfortunately. So I think it's very important to sort of pay attention to what the fallout from this will be as far as the suspension, because I would be very surprised if there were not an immediate suspension once we find out in the pregame press conference that Duke will have. Banchero is probably going to be out for 2 or 3 games, and it makes a whole lot of cynical sense, and I'm forever a cynic, because their next 3 games, including tonight against Gardner-Webb, are against teams that are well below Duke's level, let's just say, as far as talent level and tradition level. The Citadel's on the schedule. Gardner-Webb, of course, tonight. Gardner-Webb's nothing to shake a stick at as far as badly, but not quite at the Duke level when it comes to that. So 2 to 3 games would get you back just in time for the Gonzaga game, which is against the number 1 team in the country, of course. And then their next game, the following Tuesday, would be against Ohio State. And that would be obviously a big one that they would want him back for, if I'm playing the cynic. So I think it's fair to say at least he's going to be out for tonight's game. Now, that being the case, we've seen the line move a couple of points, about 2.5 points so far, down to about 18.5 in favor of Duke. If that's a game that I'd be interested in betting, I think it's worth paying attention to if we definitely get that suspension. He's not going to play. Let's just be fair. He's not going to play tonight. You can't let a guy let a guy who got this kind of trouble at 1 a.m. on Sunday play the next possible game. So he will be out tonight. Is that worth playing the 18.5 against Gardner-Webb? Now, Gardner-Webb gave Arkansas a little more than they were probably hoping to get in the most recent game. And in the first game, they took UNLV down to the wire. They were a sporty bunch, to say the least. We've seen Gardner-Webb in the NCAA tournament recently, so they're not anything to sort of sneeze at as far as the competition. So would I play the minus 18.5 for Duke or plus on the other side? I'd probably stick away from this game. If I'm going to lean one way, I'd still kind of like Duke. But this is one of those like emotional type games that I really don't like putting my money on this early in the season, that you don't know how a young team without one of their young studs is going to be able to play, or is going to be able to react without him in the lineup. So I'd probably just steer clear of this game. Duke's loaded anyway. They're going to be able to win by 15, 20, maybe even 25 points, and they may cover the spread easily. But it's just one of those high emotion kind of moments that you don't really know if the team's going to be like down when they come out, and it's a big risk compared to the normal gambling risk that we take. So I'd probably clear away from that.
Good stuff. I mean, forget law enforcement. The wrath of Coach K would scare me more than anything. He seems like a scary man with this kind of stuff.
Yeah, but he loves his kids. He loves the guys that play for that team, and he's been accused of being a little lenient with them, or a little let's just say, opportunistic with some of the suspensions that he may have been able to levy over the last several years. And again, it's his last season. Does he want to be super instill all of this power and use it in his last season, or does he want to try to make that one last push for a championship? This game won't mean much for it anyway, but if you're looking for the 2 to 3 games, which kind of makes some sense, also look for the fact that he'll be back in time for Gonzaga too, because they'll need that game just for RPI points.
Absolutely, they will. All right, well, we will be on this. Stay tuned for more. Now on over to a bet last night. This is where we talk about how we did in our games the day before, and spoiler alert, we didn't do great. Arky, first of all, I'm really glad you're with us today because I do recall you saying yesterday that if the Rams didn't cover, you were not going to get out of bed until after the show today. So it's good that you're with us. I'm glad to see you there. Obviously, the Rams went down to the 49ers in Monday Night Football, 31-10. San Francisco picked up their first win at home all year, and it marked their 5th straight win over the Rams, which they even said on the broadcast last night. Still crazy to me. The 49ers had the lead and control of this game all night long. The Rams were just bad on offense, bad on defense. They couldn't make throws. They couldn't make catches, literally to save their life. And when they were catching the ball, it was out of bounds, which doesn't do much for your team. Just a weird off night for LA, who were completely shut out in the first and third quarters. Matt Stafford was 26 of 41 for 243 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 interceptions. Jimmy Garoppolo was just 15 of 19 for 182 yards and 2 touchdowns on the night. Arky, give us your thoughts on this one. I know you're not happy.
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. I made a big mistake last night with this game and yesterday on the show.
You and a lot of people.
When I didn't consider one thing that we're going to talk about in just a minute on why the game ended up the way it should have, because it should have ended the way it did.
Oh.
And I'll tell you why, and the one thing we missed on that in just a second, but the fact that San Francisco started with their first drive, an 11-minute drive.
That's insane.
That scored the first touchdown. And then, Los Angeles, not seeing the ball for the better part of an hour, it felt like, decided to, toss it around a little. Then Matt Stafford gets picked off for a touchdown. It's 14-0 before you know it in favor of San Francisco. And that's when I knew the game was sort of lost for us. And so we talked yesterday on the show how we thought this game, everything sort of made sense for Los Angeles to win this game by a touchdown. And, maybe a little bit more, but nothing like a 41-10 type game. Just a nice, solid win at the end of the day. What we did pay attention to is something we've already seen happen to us earlier this season, and I paid attention to so much that I made money on it, and I did not do my due diligence on that. And I apologize to everyone in the country watching this right now. Because what I did pay attention to was the line movements and the liability that the sportsbooks had. So the sportsbooks had the number basically at 3.5, 4 the entire week. And they never moved the number more than half a point at any one time, even though 80% of the money was on the Rams, which is what the public had. So for some reason, when all that kind of money comes in on one team, the sportsbooks like to move the number in favor of the other team to encourage bets so they limit their liability that they would have to possibly pay out. They didn't, which means they knew something. Now, what that something was is what's great about sports betting. We may never know. Were the officials in on something? Were players in on something? Was there some other fact? We don't know, and we'll likely never know. But the fact that the sports books never moved that number, just like in the Patriots Bucks game earlier this season, the fact that so much money came in on one side and the number never really moved, should have told us something's up. And we thought yesterday that the number was fishy. We were on that. We did think that the number was fishy, but we couldn't quite figure out why. And when I just had done one more click of research, I would have seen exactly what would have gotten us on the San Francisco side and on the win. So I apologize to you, Kayla. I apologize to you, listeners. I will never let that happen again. We should have been on that because the line movement told us to.
Well, now I want to get my Detective Olivia Benson on and get to the bottom of this. That doesn't pass the smell test. I had no idea.
No, we remember back at the Patriots game. The Patriots were, I think it was a 7-point underdog in that game. And even though 85-90% of the money was on Tampa because they should have blown out New England in Foxborough. That line never moved, not a single inch, not a half a point, and it turned out that game was New England covering the 7 points. So we got to watch that. That's what you got. That's what's so interesting about sports betting is that you can break down the matchups and you can talk about how Odell Beckham Jr. being active and Robert Woods tearing his ACL and Cooper Kupp being so great and Matt Stafford playing out of his mind and top 5 offense, blah, blah, blah. But when it comes to sports betting, the line movement is super important. So we're going to pay attention to that going forward because that was a huge surprise for a lot of people. And it should have been a surprise to us who normally pay attention to these things.
Well, I don't know, Arky. Keep us in the loop next time.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I blame you.
I'm sorry.
Well, in other news, I was 1 for 4 on the night because the Thunder lost to the Heat, Lakers lost to the Bulls, but Portland didn't let me down. They won 118-113 over the Raptors. So at least I got something out of the night. But yeah, rough night for your girl.
Yeah, and how about DeMar DeRozan for the Bulls going for another 39.9 last night and blowing up the Los Angeles Lakers spot? That Chicago team, they're 10-4. They are really, really, really good. I told you before the season, I really like how this team's made up. And early on in the season, they're proving to be very, very good and proving me right.
All right.
Which is the important thing.
Well, we are going to move on now to our game of the day. We are back for some of our favorite MACtion action. All lines are according to FanDuel Sportsbook. We've got, first up, Western Michigan Broncos, 6-4. At Eastern Michigan Eagles, 6-4. Who will take home the Michigan MAC trophy? We shall see. Both teams are 3-3 in conference play and tied for last in the MAC West. Western Michigan is favored by 6.5 as of now. The total for this one is 66.5. Arky, how are you playing this game?
Boy, so this feels like a pretty interesting matchup tonight because, again, we have another three-peat of MACtion tonight, and I love it. I love it.
Oh,
I
yeah.
love it. I
Our
love
fave.
it. Yeah, it's really great football when you think about it. If you have lost it watching some NBA recently, watch some MACtion. I'm a big college football guy, and MACtion is thoroughly entertaining throughout the week. I love the sport, and I love this particular conference this time of year. And so if we sort of look at the totals, the 66.5 is a big, giant number, but totals are at 8-3 in the last 2 weeks on the over. That is a really, really good stretch for those totals. And that includes totals that are in the 70s, by the way, which we had one of those last week that we bet the over and won. Thank you, Kent State Golden Flashes. But this game's a little bit different. This game features a pretty interesting Western Michigan team heading to Eastern Michigan. And Eastern's coming off a big disappointing loss last week at home to Ohio. And Ohio is not a very good team. We'll talk about them coming up in just a minute. But Eastern Michigan was in a matchup last week that they should have been able to pull out and to win and to give themselves a better chance to try to win that division title. Well, now they're out of it, so that we don't have to talk about that. But we do have to talk about the rush defense for Eastern Michigan, who gave up 295 yards last week on the ground.
Woo!
295 last week to Ohio. Remember, this is 3-win Ohio we're talking about. 3 wins.
Yeah, they're not good.
Ohio. They ran for 295 on them last week. Eastern Michigan gives up 195 on the ground, but guess what Central Michigan does? Excuse me, Western Michigan does. They run They run for 195 on their own too. So it's a very interesting matchup there. I think we're going to see a lot of running from Western Michigan because I think you go right at the teeth of that team and the biggest weakness that they have. And I don't like the total. I would lean under, but man, there's something in my heart that doesn't want to take an under in a MACtion game in early in the week. So I'm not going to want to root for that. But I will take the road team in this scenario, and I will take the Western Michigan team to be able to win and cover the 6.5. I think they win by probably 10 points tonight. It feels like that kind of game for Western Michigan and the Broncos. I think they do eventually pull away from Eastern Michigan, and God bless Chris Creighton and what he's done so far for that team. They're already bowl eligible for a seventh time, or for the fourth time in 7 years, I should say. That's a good job by them, but I really feel like tonight is a Western Michigan night.
I think I just figured out what your nickname is, Mr. MACtion.
I'll take that.
Okay.
I'm Mr. MACtion.
Mr. MACtion.
That's right.
Okay, well, I'm actually going to do the complete opposite of you. I know that I know the visiting team is favored here, but the Broncos have failed to cover Arky, the spread, by at least 20 points in each of their last 3 games, and they're 1-4 on their last 5. They barely got past Akron last weekend, 45-40, after being the 26-point favorites. So, not great. Cincinnati transfer Ben Bryant has been huge for the Eagles at quarterback. He's completed 69.7% of his passes and has thrown for over 300 yards in 3 of his last 4 games. Meanwhile, the Broncos' weapon of choice is running back Sean Taylor, who has had 137 carries on the season for 837 yards and 7 touchdowns. These two teams are pretty evenly matched, so I'm going to lean with the home team in this rivalry game. By the way, if Eastern Michigan can get it done, it'll be the first time since 1989 that they would have won 7 of their first 11 games. So let's make some history tonight. Give me Eastern Michigan at home in this in-state rivalry showdown, plus 6.5. Oh, and also, as far as the total, it's high, but as we know, the MAC likes to go big. So I would lean the over in tonight's contest, but I'm going to stick with the spread at plus 6.5.
So we got to root against each other tonight in MACtion, huh?
We sure do.
Okay. All right. That's fair. That's fair. You can fade or follow either one of us, people, if you're watching. But I'll tell you this. I like the other side.
Okay, that's fair. All's fair in sports.
But you know what?
Something like that.
I think we all should root for the over, though, to be fair. I think the over is the fun play.
I agree. I'm with you there. Yeah. All right, moving on to our spotlight matchup. More MACtion action. We've got the Toledo Rockets, who are 5-5, at the Ohio Bobcats, who are 3-7. Both teams are sitting in third in the MAC East and West, respectively. Toledo is the favorite at minus 6.5 right now, with a total of 54.5. Both teams coming into Tuesday night's game riding high off wins from last week. Arky, who do you like in this one?
Well, so here's that Ohio team we were talking about, right? The Ohio team is 3-7. But get this, 2K, they can win their division still at 3-7 overall. There's still a chance.
Wild.
Yeah, now they have to win out, including tonight, and have some things happen in their favor, which aren't all likely to happen. But, as we like to say, so you're telling me there's a chance, right? And there is. There is a chance for Ohio. Ohio coming up a big upset win last week at Eastern Michigan. They were rolling in that game at one point against the Eagles, and it was a good effort from this part. We talked about Rourke last week and how much you love that kid, and that family just seems to only go to Ohio and produce pretty solid quarterbacks in the MAC. But we should pay attention to what Ohio is also doing with Armani Rogers. He's another quarterback that they use that does not throw the ball, but he's very, very, very good at running it. He's a big kid who likes to sort of take that shotgun pass, or shotgun step, I should say, and sort of look for his hole to run through. And he's been really good the last couple of weeks at doing that, including against Eastern Michigan last week. This week's a little different. Toledo has been known for their defense. They've been known for, I should say known. The reason they've had wins is because of their defense. But the last couple of weeks, they've gone over on the total, including almost going over in the first half last week in the total of the game. So I like Toledo in this game. I do think that they are a much better team than Ohio overall. It's tough to do these things with teams on the road and take numbers like this, but it's not double digits, and I start to lean that way. So I like that number at 6.5 in favor of the Toledo Rockets. What I really like is the over 54.5. I think we're getting a good effort, good faith and effort from the sports books to say that they realize that both these two teams don't score a lot, so we're not going to get a lot. But in that case, when it comes to MACtion, we don't get a lot of 45, 50-point games. We get a lot of 60, 65, 70-plus point games. So if that's going to hold true, and both these two teams have shown the ability to score against bad defenses, because Ohio is one of those bad defenses, I think that I want to take the risk here. And the game the play I really like on this game, even though I like the minus 6.5 for Toledo, is I like the over 54.5 for the Rockets and the Bobcats too. So I got 2 plays on this game, 2 plays I'm putting my cash on, and I really, really, really like the over.
Well, we are aligned on this one. So, yes, as you said, I'm just going to echo kind of everything that you just said there. Toledo is 5-4 against the spread. Ohio is 5-5 this season. And Toledo has gone over the total of 54 points in 3 out of 9 games this season. Ohio has reached that number in 6 games. So, And for what it's worth, Toledo is averaging 32.6 points per game, while Ohio is averaging 23.8. So there's definitely that potential to hit the over. I'm riding with Vegas on this one. I like the visiting team. They're just the better team when you look at everything on paper. So I will be taking the Rockets at -6.5 and taking the over in tonight's MACtion matchup.
Yeah, all right. So we have gotten over our rift in the last game, and we're back to being pals. Okay, we can deal with that. All right.
There we go. Same page here. All right, we are now heading into our Futures Island. Heisman Trophy futures are here, and we've got a shakeup. A new rundown every week. Things are changing, things are shifting as the college football season progresses. So this is how it currently stands. We've got C.J. Stroud, quarterback at Ohio State. He is in the first spot at +150, followed by Bryce Young at Alabama +200. Kenneth Walker III at Michigan State +450, Matt Corral, Ole Miss +750, and Kenny Pickett, Pittsburgh +400. What do you see here, Arky? Give us your thoughts.
Well, first I would like to say RIP to my Caleb Williams bet when I got him +5,000, and then he got all the way up to +750, and I thought, here we go. Okay, the movement's happening. And then Lincoln Riley decides to pull him in the game against Baylor, and you thought, okay, good, you're killing my Heisman hope. So, okay, that's definitely not going to happen. That's called wasted money. Throw it away. Thanks, y'all. I do notice that there's a shakeup at the top, that C.J. Stroud is the new leader right now. Bryce Young had been out for the last several weeks, but C.J. Stroud just keeps putting up numbers upon numbers upon numbers, and Bryce Young, even though he hasn't necessarily struggled the entirety of these last few weeks, his team has, and he has also had less than stellar games. Not so much against New Mexico State, because that's not really a game you pay attention to last week when he barely played over a half. But you talk about the LSU game from the week before, in which LSU did a great job of bottlenecking that offense that's been so high octane for the Crimson Tide. So I do notice that the shakeup there at the top is what I find most fascinating, because Alabama still has big games coming up on their schedule. So does Ohio State. And both of those teams include conference championship type games. So I think we're down to our two finalists that are going to be what the two we're going to choose from when it comes to the ceremony in New York at the beginning of December. I think that's just where we've gotten to. If you look at Kenneth Walker, it's great. He's had a great season at Michigan State, but I don't think unless you're spectacular, and he's been very good, but he's not have overwhelming numbers, that he's going to be able to sort of take that from those two guys' spots. It's kind of turned into a quarterback award. Unless you go for 2,000 plus yards and a whole bunch of crazy touchdowns, it's going to be difficult for you to overtake that. I do find it interesting that Matt Corral's gotten back into it thanks to a big win against Texas A&M last week. He was
back in the mix.
Yeah, not quite off the board. I think he went down to like +4,000 or +3,000 last week. He's now up to +750 again. They still have a couple of important games on their schedule too. And again, you don't have to win the championship to necessarily win the Heisman. He has been in a whole bunch of high-profile games himself. So I think it's a 3-quarterback race. I think Matt Corral's got a chance to put himself in the invitation list or on the invite list to New York. But I think it's Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud. And even though those are short numbers to get him at, I mean, you could probably get decent enough okay numbers when it comes to the second Saturday in December to make the pick anyway, because there's not a whole lot of value outside of that. Unless you really think Matt Corral can go nuts, and you really think Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud sort of come back to earth, which I don't think they are. But I think our top two are set in stone, and it's going to be one of those two guys that wins the Heisman. Okay,
quick question for you. Why isn't Kenny Pickett higher when he has the best numbers out of all of these guys? Over 3,500 yards, 32 touchdowns. He's got like an 83.9% QBR rating. It's because he plays for Pittsburgh and not in Ohio State and Alabama?
I think that's a big part of it. But also, like, they had a really unfortunate loss a couple of weeks ago. Remember, Kenny Pickett was way up there on this list. And again, he's in the top 5 of this list, so it's not nothing that he's at right now. It's just these are just the betting lines, and he could win the Heisman. He's got tremendous numbers to back up his season. It's just that the league, the ACC, is seen as a lesser league this season. It's that team Pittsburgh isn't quite the sexiest team in all of football right now to sort of pay attention to. And as far as big wins, like wins that put him on the national map, he doesn't really have any of them. be honest with you. People always like to talk about a Heisman moment. There's not really one. Like we were conservative on Kenny Pickett and Pittsburgh until they finally got past Clemson when they did. And then they lose a couple of weeks later, and you sort of lose that sort of love for what you had with Kenny Pickett because they lost to North Carolina it was 2 weeks ago. So, I mean, I don't think, not North Carolina, Wake, it was a couple of weeks ago. So, I don't know. I don't think that his numbers don't say you should think that he's good enough to win the Heisman. I just think that we've had two guys sort of lead the pack for such a long time, and they haven't really come back to earth. It's kind of hard to overcome those odds. And again, it's also a national media award. It's a lot of people who you think are going to vote one way or the other. It's not just who was the best overall player. It's who's the best overall player that people vote on.
Yeah, because Bryce Young has better numbers than CJ Stroud, yet he's behind him. So we'll see how those numbers shift throughout the next couple of weeks. But Arky, who's your pick as of right now?
It's a tough. That is a tough one. I'm going to say C.J. Stroud right now. Right now. Now, talk to me after this week. That could definitely change to Bryce Young again. But I do think it's going to be one of those two guys. I think right now C.J. Stroud has the primrose path to get to the Heisman Trophy. All
right. We shall see. Stay tuned. Now on to our quick hitters of the day. Arky, where are you starting with your quick hitter?
So Virginia's at Houston, a little college basketball action tonight, right? How cool is that? Virginia is, coming off a disappointing loss against Navy last week, a team they did not expect to lose to by any stretch because Navy doesn't have David Robinson, for example. So that's a big deal for them. Now Houston, on the other hand, Houston's played very nicely these first couple of weeks. Now they are a 6.5-point favorite tonight with the total at 120.5. And I think we get a little enamored with how defensively minded the Virginia Cavaliers are. And they truly are good defensively. But this year, I don't think they are great defensively. And this year, I think they're a little better from a talent standpoint. It's still too early to figure out from a totality of it as far as the numbers are concerned. I think they're also a better three-point shooting team. That's sort of what we're used to seeing with Virginia, and they're willing to open things up a little bit. Houston, on the other end, they will open up things a lot. I think Houston is a good team to take right here. Again, I told you last week how much I like Houston in general. I think Houston's a very, very, very good basketball team, and I think they're going to be in the top 15, top 10 for the majority of the season. In fact, they are leading the American Conference in threes made per game right now early on, at doing it over 10 threes a game. And I don't think Virginia is going to slow that down too much tonight. So I kind of like the 6.5 in favor of Houston, but more importantly, 120.5 is a nice low number that I think you can get a 75 to 65 type game and go over that number very easily. I'm going to take Houston over 120.5 tonight. Houston college basketball. Don't think I'm touching the Rockets. I'm touching the Cougars tonight. 120.5. I think they're very, very, very good this season. Very capable of putting up some very big numbers, including tonight.
Okay, I like it. I'm heading over to the NBA. Philly at Utah. Utah is the 8.5-point favorite with a total here at 218.5. Both teams coming into Tuesday night's game with back-to-back losses. Actually, both teams are 1-4 in their last 5, so that's not great. 76ers, who once led the East, are now sitting in 7th, and the Jazz are hanging at the 5th spot in the West. The Jazz are expected to play at full strength, while Philly will be, again, without Joel Embiid. Danny Green and Matisse Thybulle are day-to-day. Donovan Mitchell leads the Jazz in scoring. He's averaging 25.6 points per game, while Tyrese Maxey holds the title for Philly, scoring 17.6 points and also leads in assists at 4.6. It's also worth noting that Rudy Gobert helps the Jazz in a big way by picking up rebounds. He's averaging 15.3 per game. As for the trends in this one, Utah is 6-6 against the spread. The 76ers are 7-7. Totals for these teams aren't great either. Utah has only gone over the total in 4 of 12 games this season, while Philly has hit 5 out of 14 times this year. However, the 76ers have combined for more than this total of 218 in 4 of their last 5. Jazz have gone over this total in 2 of their last 5. This is a tough one, I feel like. I don't know. Vegas is leaning Jazz, but I don't see how Philly is going to lose 5 straight. So I'm going to take the 76ers at plus 8.5, Arky, and hope for a close game here.
Man, that East is, it's surprising, I think, to a lot of people. Not me, because I'm a fan of the East and I know how good it be, but you can see how deep that conference is right now.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of teams that I think are good teams that are looking really bad right now. Boston's one of those. Atlanta's definitely one of those, even though Boston's starting to look a little bit better defensively lately, especially. So I don't hate that pick by any stretch of the imagination. I think I'm going to root for you. I'm not going to touch that game. It's a weird one to me.
It's a tough one.
I was looking at it earlier this morning thinking, no, I'm gonna stay away from that. But you're gonna take the onions and do it. I like it. I like it.
Hit us with your next quick hitter.
Oh, 2K, come on. It's the NBA game of the day. It's the Warriors taking on the Nets. Yeah, even though the Nets should be better than what they are right now. They're a 3-point favorite welcoming in the really cool guys in the Golden State Warriors. The team that's on there, can you forget about all the other Warriors and remember us tour? They are doing what is just astonishing for a lot of people, and I thought this would be a great season for them to start, and they've been phenomenal to start off. The Warriors are just nuts right now. Defensively, they're excellent. They're top 4 in the league in just about most of the major statistics. Offensively, they're very, very deadly. Brooklyn has been seemingly one guy this entire season, and that's Kevin Durant, and he leads the league in scoring. Well, guess who's second in scoring? Steph Curry. That's right. It's a matchup of number 1 and number 2 scoring guys in the league. And also, check this out. NBA said we're going to add a little sauce to this dish we got. We got the Eastern Conference Player of the Week, Kevin Durant. The Western Conference Player of the Week, Steph Curry. They're now going to battle it up tonight in Brooklyn. The total is stupid at 220. I don't like it. It's dumb. Brooklyn -3 seems to make no sense in the world. I don't know. There could be an injury somewhere that hasn't been reported yet. Don't like it at all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little prop play tonight, and I'm going to go to someone who I trusted to keep in my fantasy league, in my keeper league, and is really disappointed for the majority of the season. I'm going James Harden, and I'm going James Harden total points under 21.5 is what you can get at FanDuel right now. He had a great game a couple of nights ago against New Orleans, but the Pelicans are straight trash, homie. They are not a good basketball team by any stretch of the imagination. 5 out of last 7 games, he's gone under 20 points as James Harden, and it hasn't been much better than the rest of them. So, under 21.5 is my prop play for James Harden total points tonight.
I like it. I am heading also back in the NBA. Spurs at Clippers. Clippers are the favorite here at 6.5, total 219.5. This matchup is a little easier to bet than my first quick hitter. The Spurs are coming into this one at 4-9. They are 2-5 on the road. The home team is 8-5 and 6-3 at Staples Center. Spurs have also suffered back-to-back losses to Dallas and the Lakers, respectively. The Clippers have lost their last game to the Bulls on Sunday. Clippers will continue to be without Kawhi, while Ibaka, Morris, and Keon Johnson are listed as day-to-day. But the good news for them is that Paul George is playing, and he leads LA in points, rebounds, and assists. That's hard to say 5 times fast. On the flip side, DeJounte Murray does the same for San Antonio. Both teams are 7-6 against the spread this season. With all of this said, I'm going to go Clippers with this one, -6.5. I think they are the better team, the stronger team, and in this case, the home team. So, also, if you're looking to bet the total, I think you are safe in taking the over, as both teams have had some high-scoring games recently, and they have exceeded the total here of 219.5 multiple times in their last several games. So, that's where I'm going with my quick hitter.
All right, not bad.
All right, Arky, last but not least today, our games to look out for. What are you looking forward to this weekend?
So this is a number I'm paying attention to for the rest of the week, and I'm not going to get duped into betting this game yet. But the Titans are hosting the Texans, and the Titans are a 10.5-point favorite right now, and that is a big, big, big spread. The Titans, of course, have been without a couple of players, most notably Derrick Henry recently, and it hasn't seemed to bother them as far as winning the game. But as you notice against New Orleans, against a depleted New Orleans team, They only ended up winning that game thanks to a failed 2-point conversion and pushing on the spread, depending on what you ended up getting at. It was right around the 2.5, 3-point number. So I don't think I like the Titans 10.5 right now. I'm going to keep paying attention to the injury wire as we go throughout the week. I'm going to pay attention to some of this money where it goes one way. The Texans they're miserable. I will grant you that. But the Titans are also due for a comeback to earth type game, and this might be it. They might still win, but only win by a touchdown. I'm going to pay attention to this throughout the week.
That's a good one. I am also looking to the NFL. Washington at Panthers. Washington 3-6. Panthers 5-5. Both teams are sitting third in the NFC East and the NFC South. Carolina here, the 3.5-point favorite with a total of 43. Let me just say, I am all aboard the Cam train, and I cannot wait to see him make his return to Carolina. If last weekend's reception was any indication on the road, I can only imagine what Bank of America Stadium will look like on Sunday. Obviously, Washington is coming off a huge win over the Bucs last weekend, so they will be riding high on that. But guess what? So is Carolina, and they've got Cam back. Cam is expected to take most of the first team practice reps this week and get the start for the Panthers on Sunday. It'll be his first since making his return. What we saw Cam do last weekend, that was just after 4 days, so imagine what he's capable of having a week under his belt with this team. It's going to be another situation of until you let me down in a big way, I'm probably going to ride with you, which I'm going to do with the Panthers this weekend. So give me Carolina, -3.5. I will say, though, both teams are plagued with injuries, mostly on Washington's side. But when you have the electricity that is Cam Newton on your team, the injuries are basically irrelevant at that point because you're just playing off his adrenaline. As far as the total, Carolina has only gone over 43 combined points in 3 games this season. Washington has exceeded that number in 6. I know Cam is new to the playbook, but I like the over here. Let's make it fun. Thoughts?
Man, that's a lot. This Washington defense actually is pretty bad when you look at it. So there's a chance that the Panthers could get a little healthy. And Christian McCaffrey had a really good game coming back last week against Arizona, where he went for nearly 100 on the ground and I think 60 through the air or something like that. So, there's a shot they can get a little loose against Washington. I don't hate that. We're
going to make it fun. All right, we hope you had fun today. That's going to do it for us here on OutKick Bets. That is Arky Shay. I am Kayla Canarum. Don't forget to make your picks at FanDuel.com/OutKick. Best of luck in your betting, friends, and we will see you all tomorrow.